Hi guys, so today we're going to learn how to solve one variable equation, specifically one-step, two-step, multi-step equations. So what is an equation? An equation is a statement about the equality of two expressions. Okay? They can be always true, never true, or sometimes true, like in this example, right? 1 plus 4 equals 5 is always true. 1 plus 3 equals 6 is never true, and x plus 3 equals 5 is sometimes true depending on what x is, right? And as we're talking about solving an equation, what it is we're finding the value that makes the equation true. We want the variable all by itself, and how do we do that? We undo what has been done to the variable by using what we call inverse operations, right? And here are some examples of inverse operations. The inverse or opposite of addition is subtraction and vice versa. The inverse of multiplication is division and vice versa. The inverse of what we call a radical or a root is an exponent and vice versa. Okay. A solution is a value that makes the equation true. Okay. And what we can do is we can plug in our solution to check our work. Okay. A variable is a symbol, usually a letter, standing in for an unknown numerical value in an equation. And then last is our coefficient, and that is the number placed before our variable, and it is multiplying that variable in. Okay? So let's start here with our one-step equations. So here I have x plus 6 equals 3. What we can see, what is happening to the variable is that we are adding 6. Okay? And so in order to solve it, we're going to undo it. So the opposite or the inverse of adding 6 is subtracting 6. So I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides. The plus 6 and the minus 6 end up being 0. And 3 minus 6 is negative 3. And because 6 minus 6 is 0, it doesn't change anything, right? So often we don't write what this is, and our answer is x equals negative 3. So let's try this problem. We have 4 equals x minus 3. What is happening to our variable? So here our variable x is being subtracted, right? We're subtracting 3. So in order to undo it, we're going to do the opposite of subtracting 3, which is add 3. And so 4 plus 3 is 7 equals x. The minus 3 and plus 3 ends up being plus 0, and since that doesn't change anything, my final answer is 7 equals x. Okay. So what happens when we have a variable, a coefficient, a number before our variable? What we're going to do is we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the coefficient, and it reduces it to 1. And why does this work, right? So if we have something like AB, and we multiply by the reciprocal, which is the flipped of it, on top a times b is AB, the bottom is BA. The b and the b divide by each other, leaving us with 1, and the a divide by each other, leaving us with 1. And so when we multiply the reciprocal, it reduces it to 1. Okay, so let's see what is happening here. So here we have 3x equals 5. What is happening to my variable x? I am multiplying 3 here. So in order to undo it, I'm going to do the opposite of multiply by 3. The opposite of multiply by 3 is to divide by 3. And when I do that, the 3 divided by 3 ends up being a 1. But because there's no need to write 1x, because it's just 1 times x, which is x, we often don't write it. And then 5 divided by 3 is 5/3, and if you change it to a mixed number, that will be 1 2/3. Okay? So here we have x over 5 equals negative 6. What is happening to my variable x here? It is being divided by 5. Okay? So in order to undo it, instead of dividing by 5, I am now going to multiply by 5. When I do that, the 5 divided by 5 ends up being 1, leaving me with 1x, or just x. Negative 6 times 5 is negative 30, and so x equals negative 30, because 1 times anything is itself. Right? Here we have 3/5 x equals 10. So there are two ways to think about it. You can either think about it by it multiplying by 3/5, okay? Or you can think about it as multiply by 3 and divide by 5. Right? And so let's do it first with the multiply by 3/5. Okay? So we learned before that when I want to multiply 3/5, the answer is to divide by 3/5. We learned that when we're dividing a fraction, it is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Okay? And so when I do this 5 and this 5 simplify to 1. This 3 and 3 simplify to 1, leaving me with 1x. And then here, 10 times 5 is 50 over 3. If I were to change it to a mixed number, it'd be 16 2/3. Okay. So this is one way you can think about it with one step. If you think about it as two steps, if you think about it as being multiplied by 3 and divide by 5, okay, we're going to do it. So get rid of the divide by 5 by multiplying by 5. This leaves you with 3x equals 50. And then you get rid of the multiply by 3 by dividing by 3. And this gives you 1x equals 50 over 3, which is also 16 2/3. Last one here, what is happening to this variable? So here I have a 2 equals negative x. What this really is a 2 equals negative 1x. This is a negative 1 times an x. So here, what is happening to our variable is that we are multiplying by negative 1. And so in order to undo it, if it is multiplying by negative 1, we are going to divide by negative 1. 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 gives me 1x, which is the same as just x, because 1 times anything is itself. Okay? So let's try a couple harder ones. All of the other ones just had one step to it. This is a multi-step equation. Okay? So we're going to talk about what happens to x, starting from the closest to x to the furthest. Okay? So here we see that we are dividing by 3. And then we are subtracting 7. Okay? And so when we get rid of it, we are going to go backwards. So we're going to start by getting rid of the subtract 7 by adding 7 to both sides. And then to get, this should be 5, right? And then to get rid of the divide by 3, we are going to do the opposite, the inverse, which is to multiply by 3. This becomes 1, so I have 1x equals 15. Okay. So what is happening here? So starting with x, the thing that is happening is that we are multiplying by 4, and then we are adding 3. Okay. And so to undo it, we're going to go backwards from furthest to closest. So to get rid of the plus 3, the opposite is to minus 3. This leaves us with 4x. Plus 3 minus 3 is plus 0, which doesn't do anything. Negative 17 minus 3 is negative 20. Then to get rid of the multiply by 4, we're going to divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so we have 1x here. And negative 20 divided by 4 is negative 5. Okay. Next one here, what we see is x plus 7 divided by 3 equals 2. So what is happening? So the closest thing to x right now is that we are adding 7, and then we are dividing by 3. Okay. So to solve, we're going to go backwards. So to get rid of the divide by 3, we will multiply by 3 first. 3 divided by 3 leaves us with 1. Okay, so 1 times x plus 7 is just x plus 7. 2 times 3 is 6. And then to get rid of the plus 7, we are going to subtract 7. Okay. Plus 7 minus 7 is 0, so x plus 0 is just x. 6 minus 7 is negative 1. Okay. Last one here, what is happening? We are multiplying by negative 5 halves. That's the closest thing to x. And then we are adding 6. Okay. So what we're going to do, again, we're going to go backwards. So first we're going to subtract 6. This leaves us with negative 5 half x. And then 1 minus 6 is negative 5. Then to get rid of the multiply by negative 5, 6, I'm going to divide by negative 5 half, which is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay. So negative times a negative is a positive. This times 2 and this divide by 2 undo each other, leaving me with 1. And this 5 divided by 5 here ends up being 1. So I am left with a positive 1x, right? Negative times a negative is a positive, and then the times 2 divided by 2 times 5 divided by 5 undo each other to be 1. Do it on the other side. Okay. Negative times a negative is a positive, and then the 5 here divide by 5. And then with a 2, negative 1 times negative 2 would give me a positive 2. And so x equals 2. Okay. Next, I'm going to have you solve this problem here. It's a little bit more challenging, okay, but we're going to start with the closest thing. You're going to name what is happening to x, and you're going to reverse it.